And we thank you for joining us today. This is our weekly webinar series, and we're happy to have you here. And if you're watching online on demand, which many people do, welcome in a sense. And thank you for taking the time to learn about meetings and the premier substitute, the ideal substitute, which is what Cynthia Stewart calls a huddle. So thanks again for joining us today. Let me just take you through a little bit of housekeeping here, because we want to make sure this time is worth your time. You get value out of this effort of yours. There I am on the left, Victor Dominguez. I'm the Executive Director of Business Performance USA Global. And to the right here are my two partners, Dr. Jeff Stewart, who's a good friend, one of the smartest, savviest business people I've ever met, and a true pleasure to work with. And of course, our presenter, Cynthia Stewart, Managing Partner of Evermore Services. We're really happy to have her present today. I'm going to tell you more about Cynthia in just a minute, but let me just do a little bit of housekeeping here. We certainly want you to ask questions, and you can do so through the user interface, the question tool, or even the chat tool, which is most easiest and intuitive for you. We monitor both, so feel free to ask us a question. We will be polling as well, and you'll see instructions on how to do that. But if you have a specific question after this event, or if you're watching online, you can email Cynthia Stewart at cynthia@businessperformanceusa.org. And of course, you can watch all of our webinars, some 70 plus online on demand at businessperformanceusa.org. You can sign up today, and membership is always complimentary because we're here to serve. Our mission is to pollinate great ideas, share them with others so that we can find those that want to collaborate and make this world a better place, starting with our careers and the organizations we work for. We know that when businesses and organizations thrive, so do our communities. And that's what we're all about here. So let me just tell you a little bit about Cynthia Stewart. She's, of course, a partner, a co-founder, along with Jeff Stewart and myself, of businessperformanceusa.org, and she's an absolute joy to work with. The one word I use to sum up Cynthia is quality. She's all about the quality movement and quality and execution and operational excellence. Cynthia holds her MBA and is certified by the American Society for Quality as a manager of quality and organizational excellence, as well as a Six Sigma black belt, so she can really kick it in the workplace. Cynthia partners with leaders in growing high-performance organizations through a strategic and staged approach to employee development, quality improvement, and business problem solving. And she really is a transformer. She does make change happen, but through positive influence. She really gets people to want to buy into the shared purpose of an organization and moves them forward. She knows corporate America well. She lives the life of a leader, and therefore cultivates and brings more leaders along with her. And she just can really change the dynamic of an organization. She's got a lot of diverse industry experience, public and private, and just a true, like I said, a true joy to work with. So to begin, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to launch the poll that I mentioned earlier, what's the problems with meetings, and then we're going to switch things over, and Cynthia will be able to start her presentation. So, poll is launched. There you go. Folks, let me know if you're seeing any issues with this. So, essentially, of course, what we're talking about here is what is the problem with meetings? Is it the plan? Is it the people? Is it the process? What is your experience with this? And it will give us a chance to really understand how we can best serve you. So Cynthia, you should see the presenter window come your way.
Yes, I see it.
We're going to give this just a few more minutes, or not actually, just a few more seconds, if you will. And we're starting to get our leads in real quickly. And I'm going to close out this poll. Okay. Um, Closing polls right now. Cynthia, I'll read you these results, and then we'd love to hear your comment on them. It's really shifted extremely. People find that the plan is about 15% of the issue. They find that the people involved are about 5%, and that leaves us with a whopping 80%. People are finding challenges with the process of the poll. So what make you of that, Cynthia? Cynthia's probably looking for her microphone, if you will.
Hey, Victor, do you hear me?
Hey, Cynthia. Yes, I do. Perfectly.
Okay. And I think I've got the screen, and I'm going to switch it. And is that looking right on your end?
It's correct. I'm seeing the poll right now. Thank you.
You know, it's so interesting to me because I started this meeting series because I've had so many people that I work with as clients, and I hear I hate meetings all the time. And I attend their meetings and I find out, gosh, they don't even do meetings right. And who knew that there were right ways to do meetings? Because really, meetings only are, where it only takes two people to have a meeting. I mean, you can try and have a meeting with yourself, but it only takes two people to have a meeting. So meetings are really all kinds of times that people get together. In fact, you see, there we go. Um, I find that a lot of people hate meetings, and they'll talk about why they hate meetings, and they come up with people are late, they're texting, so it's all about the people, right? They're texting, they're on their computers, they're not listening,
They're
they're not
not
focused,
prepared.
they're not prepared, and so people talk about people being the problem with meetings, and yet when you look at all that behavior, that has everything to do with the plan for the meeting, how the meeting is conducted, what the rules are, and I always set what are the game rules, right? I always set the rules when I had meetings, and also it's the meeting process. And so I have found that huddles are a great way to think about meetings, and I was so lucky to find this wonderful picture of the football players in a huddle. And so, we have to deal with the issue of why do we meet? Why do we have to meet? And it's because we got to come together. We have to collaborate, and we've got to get our decisions in alignment or unify our decisions. We've got to set the game plan. We got to say what's next. We've got to achieve the purposes of the company, of the organization, even of our lives, to be honest with you, because you need family meetings as well. We've got to inform people. So there's a lot of reasons why meetings are so powerful and why they're needed. And I want to take a minute and talk about huddles. So, really, huddles are a form of meetings. And I want to first, I want to look at this picture. Let's look at this picture. So, what do we see? Well, we see that they're really in close proximity with each other, which is what effectively what huddle means is to be very close to each other. What's the other thing? Well, I noticed they're standing. Nobody's sitting around a conference table. They're standing. And where are they? They're behind the line of scrimmage or effectively in the field of play, right? And there's clearly one person talking, and most of the heads are turned towards that person. And you can kind of figure out who's talking because of the angle of many of the heads there. Um, and there's different stance, like some have their hands on their hips, and you kind of see a different set of people, but they all look relaxed. I mean, they don't look real tense. They look relaxed. They look focused to me. So those are some things I notice about this huddle. Now, what I want to do is start to talk about huddles in business because I think there's some takeaways when we think about huddles. And let's think of huddles in business this way. Huddles effectively are strategy sessions, and that's what a huddle on the field is. You've got the team, or really it's the offensive team comes together before an offensive play in the terms of a football huddle. But effectively, when we're talking about huddles in business, it's the team. Who's the team? Well, the team is whoever you call it, but it's the people that are working together, that have something they're playing or working together. They have something that they're doing together. And what I think is really important about when you think about football analogies is that football analogies in football, they have a massive playbook. So they have done a tremendous amount of rehearsing. We all know that they have to get together in about August. They start their rehearsing, if you will. I call it rehearsing. I'm sure they don't call it that, but anyway, they are playing from a playbook. They have for every game, they have a game strategy, and they have the scoreboard. So before they head into a huddle, these are all at play. The playbook doesn't walk onto the field because it's all in the heads of the players. It's all in their heads. They know that playbook by the time they hit the field. And they know what strategy, and the strategy is, okay, we're coming up against this competitor, so this is how we're going to do this game. And it shifts, and it can shift during the game because people get hurt, and so it's not the same set of players. Um, and they could be hurt on both sides, or somebody's really got their game on that day and they're better that day than they were the last time they played against each other. And so there's all these things at play that are a little bit different than the last time they may have played that team, or then their rehearsals, or then the strategy in the game had set up. And so they have the scoreboard. They know who's winning. They know all the statistics of the game, and that's all at play in huddles. And the same is true for business. Um, you need, when you go into a huddle, you need at least to have your game. Know what your game is and be able to talk about your strategy. And in the case of business, you have dashboards or scoreboards, hopefully, and you have a project plan or a business plan or something that represents, say, your playbook. And you should know where you are in based on your dashboards, where you are in this competitive bid that you're doing for a company, or a new market launch of a product. You should know where you are. So huddles in business should be in the field of play, and we're going to talk about these a little bit more. And they should be short. They should be a short break during work. It's a break where you come together. And there should be a huddle leader, and that should be part of the team. The huddle leader should be part of the team. The difference between a meeting, especially a staff meetings are usually run by the managers. Huddles are run by somebody that's designated to be the leader in the case of football, quarterback, or team captain. But in the case of business, it should be someone that's designated to lead that huddle. And really, they're coming together to strategize their next move and to move something forward. So those are some key things about huddles, and I'm going to go into more detail about
Cynthia,
these things. Yeah,
just a quick note of all of those. I think the when is really, really key because people think of meetings. We got to schedule a calendar, look for when people are available. I think the analogy of the football field, your last image, this all happens in real time, and it happens quickly because the game is going on, or in other words, work is going on. So whenever there's either an issue or an opportunity, and frankly, issues are opportunities, they're really the same thing. It's a time to pull a short huddle and discuss, this isn't ideal, how can we improve it, or here's an opportunity to engage with a client in real time, how can we get the right answers to them. So life happens in the exact moment. It doesn't happen next Tuesday when you can schedule it. So the win aspect I think is super, super critical. Thanks.
yeah, and we're going to press on that some more. And I completely agree with you. This slide, I should have put it in as a handout for people to take away. But there's some real huddles are strategy sessions. It's all about the strategy for the next play, if you will, whatever that is in your context in business. So now I want to drill down, pretty much following that same format. Um, I said the leader was a designated team member, and Basically, the leader sets and leads the agenda for that particular huddle. So the leader can call, usually the leader is somebody that knows that a huddle is coming up, right? Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it is a problem. We got to get together. We got to solve it now. The contributors, everyone that's a team member is in this. So there's contributors who are team members who are going, and I call them contributors because they have to put their voice out there. They have to advocate. They have to tell what their thoughts are. They have to tell what their experience is. They need to, that's pertinent, that makes a difference in that moment when you're in that huddle. So they're focused in your I and I'm going to talk some more about all the other aspects, but contributors are the team members. They're the people in the field of play. It's good to have a scribe, somebody, and I really think a scribe is important. So the scribe is somebody that's going to document the decision made and send that out to whoever wasn't in the huddle that needs to know about it, or just to confirm that everybody heard correctly. But the scribe is a really important person. So is the timekeeper. What I find is that if you don't put a time limit, and it's called time boxing, if you don't box the time, so we're going to get together in a 15-minute huddle around this topic, and we're not going to entertain a whole lot of other stuff. So, yeah, it's okay. What I find a lot when I think of a meeting, I think of people sprawled out in their chairs, you know, pushed away from the conference table, just kind of all relaxed and shooting the breeze and not paying attention. And that's what I think of meetings. They've kind of devolved into this, not, leaning in and getting things done. So the scribe is really important. So is the timekeeper. And then I'm going to talk about this culture keeper, the culture keeper, and what they do. And I'm going to wrap it all up in the end. But the culture keeper is making sure they're just keeping a tab on things. They're making sure people are contributing, and they're asking somebody that just stands there. They're getting them engaged. Also, it's not a bad time to recognize, especially around the topic that you're talking about. It's not a bad time to recognize individuals. We're so, is something as important as we are so glad you called this huddle, or we're so glad you brought up this issue or this problem, or listen, we noticed you did this last week, that was great. So the culture keeper is trying to make sure that we're thinking about people in terms of people. They're contributing, they're getting recognized, wins are being recognized. The team is really coming together, and they're there to help them do that.
Cynthia, I have a question about the culture keeper, if I may. Um, is this sometimes there's an issue of people inserting new ideas into the meeting, and that could be a good or distraction. But how? And I struggle with this myself. How should a new idea be treated? Should it be criticized? Right. Sometimes people have a habit of jumping on it and criticizing it. Should it have air to breathe and people be open to it? Should it be tabled? And is that the job of a culture keeper?
I would say that's the job of the leader. The culture keeper is sitting back, and they're really an observer, and they're inserting when they need to insert. But when it comes to keeping the meeting focused on the agenda at hand, the important thing is that the leader is calling the shots in terms of that's in, that's out. That's a parking lot issue. Great issue. Let's do that in our next huddle. Let's have a huddle at the end of the day. Let's have a huddle tomorrow morning. We'll take up that issue, but let's solve this issue today. So they really are the quarterback. They're keeping
Okay.
in the huddle what should be in the huddle, and tossing it out if it shouldn't be in the huddle.
Thank you.
Very good distinction, I think, with that question. So what do you need to have a good huddle? Well, I talked about the playbook. The playbook, I think every team, like I'm working with right now a company, and I noticed that, they had a lot of client issues. And I said, well, you guys need a playbook. You need to say how you're going to deal with those issues so that people are making the right calls. And so they are finally, we actually in March got together in a room and said what would be in the playbook and what was it about. It's kind of the way we're going to play the game. It's the total rules of the game. And so I outlined it. And now they're taking pieces and parts and delegating them, and they're putting them together. And I suggested they use videos. The playbook is just it's really an overall consensus about what our goals are and what we're aiming for and how we're going to act and be in that process. And so the playbook really helps you in terms of keeping your meetings short and sweet, because if everybody's got the playbook, Apple is really famous for their Genius playbook. I mean, it's talk about scripting, but they use the playbook to train people by. And there's a whole lot of issues off the table when you have a playbook, in terms of this is how we're going to act and be. And the only thing that you should be dealing with is what's really happening today, and are we on target with our performance and our purpose? So you're not having to deal with how people are supposed to behave or how people are supposed to respond. Those things are already written in the playbook. So now you got your game plan. What's your game plan? Well, that's either your quarterly plan or your annual plan or your project plan. It's something that's saying, okay, here's what we're doing now. This is the project improvement that we're doing now. This is what this team are focused on now. And here's how we're measuring it. That's the score. So you got to know the score. Now the strategy. Well, the strategy, a lot of people think of strategic as something that somebody does in some office somewhere. Strategy is every day. It's how you're going to approach something. So the huddles are strategic sessions when issues come up, so that you decide how you're going to deal with something, how you're going to approach it, how are you going to close that gap in performance, how are you going to go get that client, how are you going to serve, how are you going to deal with this customer complaint. Those are strategies. How are you going to do it? In line with your purpose, in line with your score, in line with your game plan, in line with your playbook. And now it's collaboration time, because when you decide on the strategy, is a collaborative thing. Everybody should have a voice in coming up with that strategy, because if they are voicing it, then they're getting it into their minds and they're getting it into their action. So it's really essential that you have this collaboration and everybody contributes. When you get everybody's voice, they're more likely to walk out of there and be in alignment with the decision made and the strategy that's been developed, and they're more likely to be sure, to act on that in concert, in a cohesive manner. So that's what's needed to have a really good huddle. So the main thing that you focus on, all these other things are happening, but you're walking in with the playbook, the game plan, and the score, and now you're doing the strategy through collaboration and contribution. That's a huddle.
There's a question that just came up about the game plan. So you're talking about collaboration, and by the way, thank you for the audience member who contributed this. Is the game plan for the meeting, for conducting the meeting itself, or is the game plan for the business execution that follows the meeting?
The game plan is really a larger plan than what's going to happen in the huddle. It's a project plan, or it's a department plan for the quarter, or it's a marketing plan. So it's something that's already been laid out and is being executed against.
Okay.
So if it's the thing that you're executing against. So unfortunately, if you don't have a playbook and you don't have a game plan and you don't have a score, it's kind of hard to run a huddle, because you have so much that you need. That's why meetings get so long and big, is that you aren't laying the foundations that help you be successful day to day. And so if you're walking in without these things, I say go get them. Go put a project together and get your playbook going. Go put a game plan together for whatever you need to be accomplishing against the corporate goals or the business goals. And, if you're an ice cream shop, your game plan is probably how are we going to get more people in the door? And so your game plan is, well, we're going to join the chamber. So you've set up a game plan for the things that you're going to do, and then you've got to go and talk about it. What happened at the chamber? Did you meet any more people? Did you hand out those discounts? So your huddles they're affirming the action that has been taken and the response that you've gotten. And now you're affirming what you need to do next in the huddle.
So just a quick comment here. So in regards to collaboration of the game plan, so if somebody in that meeting, so the game plan can't entirely be set in stone because through the collaboration process, adjustments might be made. Is that accurate?
Accurate. Yeah, that's why game plans are basically a way that it's just you've got a goal, right? We're going to complete this by such and such a date. You've got the actions to complete that, and so you've got, most people do at least that level of planning. Hopefully, a project plan or a marketing plan or some kind of plan that you're working against. And if they don't, then they're approaching their business in a really haphazard way. And that would be another webinar. So, like I say, what you need as you go into the huddle is some kind of playbook. This is the way we conduct our business. Some kind of game plan. Okay, we're going to achieve this for this quarter or this month or this week. And the score, where are we in achieving that? And now you've got to strategize because things don't always work out the same way. So yeah, that's why you go into a huddle. Just like football, they got to go into the huddle to set up the next offensive play, right? The next thing you're going to do from an offensive perspective. And that's a great analogy to business. The next thing you're going to do to go get new clients, the next thing you're going to do to accomplish your goal, your short-term, near-term goal. Hopefully that answered that. Yeah. So where does a huddle happen? And what I like about the football analogy is it's behind the line of scrimmage. So effectively, it's on the field of play. They don't go back. They go back at halftime, and you can maybe call that a huddle, but because they strategize there too and get a break and that kind of thing. But really, where you want it to happen is where you are. So, that's challenging if you're like Victor and I. Victor's in California, I'm in Tulsa. That's a long way off for us to get together. But that's what's the beauty of the digital world is that we can get together. We've got Skype, we have all these tools. So we can still be in our workday and our workflow and still, do a quick text or a quick, we can do our quick huddles. The fact that you're not in physical proximity does not eliminate the opportunity to do a huddle. That's what I'm saying. But so that's why I included on the move. But what I like is that you're standing together. You're not slouched in chairs around a big conference table. And I'm not saying that's a bad way to hold a huddle. Please don't. My point is simply that we're going to do this huddle now because we really need it, because we've got something that's come up. But that's not to say that huddles are never planned, and I'm going to get to that as well. But the point is that it's short, sweet, and productive, and it's because there's a good setup. The business or the organization is doing its planning. People know what they're supposed to do, and focus on now. The priorities are set, and there's scoreboards and all of that going on. So when you've got that kind of environment, which by the way is a high quality environment, high performance environment, then huddles can happen anytime, anywhere, to move the next play, if you will, to strategize and move things on.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Now, Victor kind of really liked this short and sweet idea. And so what I want to do is I want to say, remember that huddles are strategy sessions. When do you do strategy? You do it all the time. You do it as needed. You do it daily. You do it weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. Why? Because you've got to keep track of where you are against what you're trying to achieve. And so as needed is usually to solve an issue or a problem, to strategize the next play, if you will, for the offensive, the next offensive play. So that's an as needed. But you can actually do daily. So when I worked in an electric utility, they did daily safety huddles because they wanted to make sure, and they did it in the morning, first thing. And why? Because every day we had work linemen, every day the linemen, the meter readers, they go out to fairly dangerous jobs dealing with electricity. We've got to make sure that people's minds and actions are in alignment and ready to face what they're going to deal with that day. It could be ice an inch thick on the lines. It could be, you never know. I mean, they're out there every day in all kinds of anymore people wielding guns. We had that. We had dogs being attacked. So every day they do a safety huddle. And in the safety huddle, they would actually literally do some back and stretching, do some exercises, believe it or not, yes, in a huddle, because they found out that, if they would do some quick stretching and that, it really helped problems with the back problems they were experiencing. They also will give a safety tip for the day. So if it's hot, what to do about the heat. If it's ice, what to do about the ice. So something that's really relevant to the day and what they're going to face that day. So daily is a good time, or maybe you work in a hospital and you've got shifts, or you work in a 24-hour business, or like one of our partners who has a business that is an IT business, and so they've got people working in India during the night, and then they come in. Well, they've got to have a huddle to transfer information, say what's up, what got done, what didn't get done. So, that's the daily rhythm, if you will, for huddles. Weekly rhythm for huddles is, okay, you said you were going to do this, you predicted this outcome, what happened? So you're really talking about the score for the week, usually in a weekly huddle. What problems you're going to face for the next week. You could be talking about how you solved a problem and what you're going to do next time. So weekly is appropriate. In a monthly huddle, again, it's focused. Hopefully you're in all huddles. It's always good to celebrate wins, but especially at least every month, you should be celebrating the wins for the month with regard to your score against your predicted performance, mid-course corrections because of what you did or did not achieve. And sometimes it's really good news, so you want to keep the momentum up so people they go, oh, well, we're only supposed to, get 3,000 new clients a year. We just got 6,000, so now we don't have to work. Well, no, you need to say what you're going to do, what that means to you, and you're going to still go after those 3,000 that month. So that's kind of your monthly, and then your quarterly is really to set next year's quarterly plan. And then annually, of course, should be the big celebration. So when to huddle, again, huddles are strategy sessions, and each in the time frame I'm talking about here, your strategy is it's a window in time that's focused on that, like the next week, or the next month, or the next quarter, or the next year. It's a window in time where you're going to strategize, collaborate, celebrate wins, and move the ball, to the next period. I like this little
Yeah.
gear. Yeah, go ahead.
I've got a question from the field, and thank you for the attendee for the question. I'll just paraphrase this. This person works in customer service where things change all the time, and she likes this idea of huddling, but they can't break from their headsets and go huddle. She wants to know if you think this is a good idea. She suggested that they set up a chat or even texting each other to tap into expertise. And I'm presuming she thinks of that way as a spontaneous huddle, virtual huddle, through by texting or chatting each other while they can still stay in their headsets engaged. What do you think of that idea?
I think that is a great idea, and I think that for that to work, they need to set some guidelines And if they will take some of these ideas, like, okay, who's the leader, who's the timekeeper, who's the scribe, that kind of thing, and then be ready to hand off because somebody's going to, like a call will obviously come in, right? So somebody's going to have to hand off for a moment. They just, so I think that could really work as long as they know what the game rules are. And the other thing about call centers is that they are notorious for tracking their calls, and they are pretty good about knowing when their calls are going to hit during the day. And so they're pretty good about knowing when they can take a quick break, 15-minute break, and talk with each other. So they could use the technique she's talking about, but I would really want to use the statistics about when the calls are coming in and when they have those down periods, and it could change. You know, day of the week could change. So an hour of the day could change, and seasons can change when calls are coming through, depending on whether they're, healthcare or electric utility or billing service, or depending on the kind of service. But I love that idea about her,
She,
doing an.
she likes it. She's kind of feeding me information. She likes the idea of the, uh, huddle during the gap, but she says they're always busy, always busy, and what they need is expertise where one person knows something that another may not. So perhaps they would cross train each other as well, so that they can what Cynthia, you, Jeff, and I call knowledge sharing.
Right. The other thing is that call centers should have backup centers. So what you could do is form separate, different teams within the call center, and so the teams would huddle. Like you might need the pollinator, if you will, that would go from one huddle to the next. Maybe that's the call center manager or supervisor, and then you say, okay, this at this point we're going to huddle with this team, and then we're going to huddle with this team, and let the other teams back up the teams that are huddling. And if you're doing a 15-minute, usually they can take a 15-minute break. I mean, as a matter of fact, breaks are common. So I think that it's a matter of really laying out the best way to get people into these huddles, because and they're very valuable, especially as you think of them as strategy sessions. They're valuable for anyone, any type of work. So I think just through some planning and test, I would say there's nothing better than a test, and just keep testing it until you kind of find what the solution is that works best for the call center.
Thanks, Cynthia.
All righty, great question. Okay, so how do you huddle? All right, so the leader kicks off the huddles with the game strategy, or game, let's say it's a problem. Um, so game strategy, and when I say it here, is like, okay, here's the game plan and here's what our strategy was, but we're going to have to make uh, corrections. We're going to have to change that. So the contributors tell their stories. So what I mean by that is contributors have stories, they have experience, okay, and they have expertise, as you mentioned in the call center sense. So they have expertise, and they have built from experience and know-how and talents and strengths and education and all of that. So that's their story is what their experience is in dealing with a similar situation that they're going to be talking about, and then they give their numbers. Hopefully, there's a score. Now, I guess at the end of this, I'm going to talk about an example of a huddle that's really cool. And the scribe logs the numbers. Now, we're talking about performance here. So let's take a situation where it's the morning huddle from where people are transferring shifts. And so the stories in this case, we've got nurses that are leaving a shift and other nurses coming in. So the stories will be the ones leaving. They'll be saying, okay, by the way, patient in 109, blah, 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 this is what happened. This is what you need to know. And the numbers might be something in regard to, we've had so and so many patients that checked in. We've had so and so many patients that checked out. And we're watching the vitals on so and so because they haven't been going so well. They've been struggling with whatever. So, it's that's what I'm talking about. Pertinent numerical facts about the situation at hand. So, safety huddles. We had an incident yesterday. You need to know about that. This is, so and so many people were hurt, blah, blah, blah. And so we're talking about information that's pertinent to the huddle at hand. And then the scribe, in the case of the example of the nurses, they're taking down information, right? They're saying, okay, patient so and so in so and so. So somebody is on track to keep up with what's being transferred in terms of the numbers and decisions and the issues that were discussed. And then the timekeeper is saying, okay, look, we've been at this for 10 minutes. We have about 5 more minutes. And then the culture keeper is saying, so and so worked double shift. We really want to recognize you. And so they're doing a quick minute of recognizing the people and their hard work. So people feel like, wow, somebody's noticing that I took 2 shifts last. That's kind of nice to be thanked for that. Nobody ever thanks me. So that's the culture keeper. So this is what's going on in the huddle. So people are contributing. The leader is playing, is the quarterback, making sure that people are staying focused. It's not like no joke. Jokes are fine. People laughing actually help remember the situation better. So hopefully you've got a jokester. I should have put that, jokester. If you've got a jokester, they will keep as the culture keeper, they're going to keep the environment light. And the lighter it is, doesn't mean it's not serious, but the more likely people will remember, believe it or not. If they've been laughing during that huddle, they're going to remember the huddle better. So I encourage keeping it light, and that's what a culture keeper will do. Now, I want to real quick talk about a wonderful book called The Great Game of Business. And Jack Stack, he now has barbecue on the market. You may have heard of his name. There's Stack Barbecue. It amazes me. But Jack Stack, about 20 years ago, 21 years ago, I think now, was the plant manager for International Harvester's plant in Springfield, Missouri. And they were going to sell off the plant. They were big machinery overhaulers. They would overhaul large machinery. They were struggling, International Harvester, so they were going to sell the plant. So Jack Stack really worried about his people, and he knew who was heading to college and who was trying to buy a house, and he knew his people. So they bought Springfield Remanufacturing, the employees did, and they had to go to something like 96 banks to get this buyout, and the buyout was unbelievable. Like 96 of it was leveraged by the bank. And so, it's like all the don'ts were present. So here's Jack Stack and his employees, and they got to run this thing. And he realized that his employees didn't know anything about business. And so he ended up really helping focus everyone, janitor, everybody participated. Well, the way that he did that was through the huddle. So they do weekly huddles, and they're big deals. And the leaders, that they have a system of huddles. So there's information flowing up from teams to leaders. Leaders take information into the huddles. There's a scribe that has all the facts about. It's really almost looks like a balance. A profit statement, their huddle scorecard. And so everybody brings in they actually out loud say what their numbers are. We bought so and so many, much in supplies, and it cost this. And they do that in this huddle every week. And they have a buzz, they have a good time. Everybody wants to attend the huddle. And they do this every week, and they keep a score on their business in a manual fashion. It's unbelievable. Now they have systems, don't get me wrong, but their way of doing business is in the great game of business with the way they huddle is really down to a science. And they have spawned probably close to 150 new companies in the 20 years because of the way they do business. So you can learn a lot from the great game of business. It doesn't apply in every case because not everyone's willing to do a full employee, share ESOP, where everybody shares in the business itself. Everything they do, you can't apply everywhere. But the huddle, if you want to read about a good huddle, read that book. So um, when I think about huddles, though, I think a lot about the safety huddles that I've seen. I think a lot about team huddles that happen on the factory floor, and so forth and so on. Lots of ways to apply some really simple principles in huddling. I think that's it, Victor. Are there any questions? Any other wrap-up points?
No, there's not. No more questions. Some good comments from the field, the attendees. That is, I'm just scanning them. That's why my voice is hesitating. But in the interest of time, I think I'll just move on, and we'll wrap this thing up. It's been incredibly helpful, Cynthia. And if you can move to the last slide, I think just to wrap this up from my perspective, huddles are phenomenally effective in what I call dynamic environments, particularly dynamic one-off environment where people are dealing with unique situations each and every time. That's classically when you're in front of the customer. Customers themselves are dynamic. They want a unique experience, and how to solve their problems or answer their questions or give them a great customer experience is a dynamic process. And that's when quick, fast huddles can really save the day. So think of your workplace as a dynamic environment, and that's why huddles fit in really well. So here's the contact information for Cynthia. We encourage you, whether you're now or watching online on demand, contact Cynthia, ask her questions, ask her about quality, ask her about how to create operational excellence. Huddles are only one of the ways that Cynthia gets this done. And then, of course, you can join us next week or look on the website for a webinar, Essential Tips for Lead Generations. That's what I do. I'm a marketing guy, and I generate qualified leads for sales that sales actually appreciates, loves, and drives their numbers. Marketing and sales has to be a collaboration, and filling that sales pipeline is going to make you a lot of friends over on the sales side. So join us for Essential Tips for Lead Generation, and that's September 1st. But hey, if it's the month of November, look for it online. You can find it there at businessperformanceusa.org. It's always complimentary to become a member. Go to businessperformanceusa.org, look for the blue button with the bee. That bee is our pollinator who shares great ideas. And join us. Let's invigorate your career. Let's really make the place where you work dynamic and prosperous, and let's benefit our communities by doing so. Cynthia, you're a joy and a dear and brilliant, and thank you for your wisdom today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Victor.
And with that, we'll close this out. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to call this a wrap.